So I think that means, does it say that I'm recording now? Yes, it seems to be. All right, so essentially then, we've just covered all the points, but I can go over it if you want. So, you know, literature review brings out the main points that support the questions for the interviews. You've got your interviews completed, and now what you're doing is you're sifting through the data, which you have done already, because you've got a graph and you've got your representative models and your diagram of your pie chart, which you'll include in your appendices. And then what you're doing is identifying the patterns, referring back to the literature where you, because that essentially was what was shaping the design of the research that you were carrying out in your interviews. And all of that is to really help answer the research question. So, and your discussion helps to move from the findings where you're saying, these are the patterns I identified, and including any material like your diagrams in the appendices, but also if in the body of that chapter where you're discussing what you found, you incorporate any parts of that image, or if you want to put the whole pie chart as well, you might want to focus on particular aspects or points in that diagram that you want the reader to have their attention drawn to, so that it helps to give coherence to what has been underpinning your research and informed your analysis of your findings that refer back to the research question. So we don't want to lose sight of the research question, and we want to engage in particular aspects of what you've discovered with you. So you've got to signpost to the reader, and the analysis is really drawing out in more depth particular aspects of what you found that either reinforce what the literature had said, or shed further light, or in terms of what could be furthered, what questions it raises, and it might be an opportunity for you to incorporate wider reading that you've subsequently come across that helps to build up your argument. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I wonder, whether do I have to include information regarding the whole coronavirus situation? Because basically, as soon as you approved the interviews questions, we had lockdown implemented already. So obviously, I met with that person. We all wear the gloves, the masks, and so on. So I wonder whether I have to put the information regarding this to my research method.
If it's, I mean, it might be relevant to your methodology section. You might want to sort of, you could do something in the acknowledgements. Mm-hmm. But for example, in your methodology section, if you had decided that you would carry out the interviews in a public space, say a library or something, you know, in your methodology section, that's where you would say, you know, changes had to be made to the arrangements in order to comply with policy and guidance because of the crisis with the coronavirus pandemic. And so that altered the way that you carried out the interviews, but it didn't stop you from carrying out your research, and you still maintain the ethical guidance or guidelines that were provided with your, you know, with the approval for your research. So that's something you can mention in that methodology section.
Okay, sure. When it comes to the interview questions, because we have to include them into the dissertation, where they go? They go into the questions and analysis section. Is that right? Or how does it work with that interview questions? Because I know we have to include them.
Yeah, so where you included them, you remember I said there's an appendices. I'm going to try while we're speaking to also bring up the module, the dissertation module, and make sure I've got things in front of me so that if we want to refer to something, we can do that. But you would be advised to put all your interview, the interview questions without the responses, right? Just these were the questions that I asked in your appendices.
Right. And when it
Okay.
comes to,
And then you'd also include the responses. So appendix 1 would be the, you could include the, I just want to see what Shirley has advised. But in the past, we've always had the sample, or the sample of the responses, as well as the blank questions. If that makes sense. Is that clear?
yes.
Okay. Super. I'm just trying to see where the handbook is on the Moodle site. Ah, there we go. Okay. Was there another question?
So in regard to the appendices, because in previous modules, I always just use the format such as appendix A, B, C, and basically, excuse me?
Yes, no, I'm saying yes.
And then basically I said why is it important. So this graph portrays significant information in regard to something, and then I just put the available at www something. Is that the format for the dissertation as well?
Well, when you want to see appendix A, that's fine. Depends what appendix. Why is there a website?
No, because sometimes the pictures or like the diagrams we take from the certain literature sources. And for example, in the other modules and in the assignment for them, that's what our tutors told us to do. So for example, in the appendix section, they told us basically to just write why this appendix is important, and put the picture or the diagram of what we wanted to use, and then always put where is that taken from.
Well, yes, I'm maybe still a little bit cloudy in terms of, I see. So here in the, if it's an electronic resource, if that's what you mean, on page 25 of the handbook, I'm just sort of scrolling through. I'm just trying to figure out here. These are the, okay, appendix 1, appendix 2, ethical procedures. Let's see. This is just for the handbook, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes. That is not what you're referring to, is it? Because what I'm trying to gather is if you have a resource that is electronic that you've referred to, are you saying that you've used that design for your interviews?
No. It's just if I found any other diagram or something what in my opinion would be relevant for the study.
Okay, so that wouldn't go in your appendix. That would go in your bibliography, as I understand. I mean, if you've used a table and you want to refer to that table in your analysis of your own table, of your own interview, right? Interview findings, then that's a resource that you can put in your bibliography because that's an online resource. I'm hoping I'm not misunderstood your question, but because what Shirley has put in the handbook are online resources that might be helpful. That doesn't answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and the other appendix she's put in is about ethical procedures, just to ensure that all students, when they're approaching their dissertation, are aware of safeguarding issues and how to carry out their dissertation according to the ethical guidances and procedures that are in place that we follow. But what you're talking about is the design, the structure of how you present your dissertation with your appendices. And I'm just from what you're saying is, if I use a table, where have you used the table, for example, so that I don't confuse things?
Well, nowhere yet, because I didn't implement the pictures into the dissertation yet. I just
Okay. All right, so if you include a picture, if you're including a picture in your literature review, or if you're including a picture or an image in your discussion of your findings, you can include the picture on the page and then next to it cite it, and then in your bibliography reference the source, if that makes sense.
Yes, that absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
So that's what I would usually do. But like, for example, the Learning Beyond the Classroom module last year, besides of implementing the pictures throughout the assignment, they told us that we can also use the appendices. And
okay, so where you would do that, I think for me, if you have used a particular model that you refer to throughout your dissertation, and it doesn't just refer to that's a section of your overall dissertation, then yes, I would include it in your appendices, because then you can refer back to the model in your, as you're going through the dissertation without having to include the image again over and over. So that would be the exception that I'd say, yeah, then you'd have to put it in your appendices. But otherwise, if it's just a diagram that helps you in discussing your findings in that chapter of your dissertation, and you're not going to refer to it again, then I would use it as a cited source, which you will include in your bibliography with the citations next to the image, if that makes sense, on the page.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mona, when you mentioned a sample of the interview, so you expect us to include all the transcription of the interview, or when you say about sample, it's just?
Well, I would put, I would say you've got 3 interviews. How many pages is that?
A lot, quite a lot, because they were semi-structured. So that allows us for clarification and for adding a certain questions.
My view is if you can include all of them, include all of them. If it's a questionnaire, because you have, so many, then you'd say maybe a sample is better than all of them. But if you can include all your transcripts of your interviews, I would, because then it allows for the person who's marking and then second marking to see where you have referred to things, and if they're, if it corresponds with what your or if there are any questions about how you've referred to the interview, then there's always a transcript to look at. And then that helps to give some clarity. So for your own sake, to help with the marking process, I would include it. If the document becomes too big, then I think you can maybe ask Moodle support, or maybe we can ask further for that. But hopefully you can upload it as one document. Yeah, I would go with that. In the past, there have been cases where the student has been asked to present the transcriptions of the interviews, and I think if you can provide it ahead with the dissertation, it might just put you in a better position, so you don't get a follow-up email. Do you see what I mean? But
absolutely. And just a quick question, guys, don't know whether I asked for that or not. So where would I put those samples of the interviews?
It would be in the appendices.
Appendices, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna write that.
Because then you can also, in your discussion of your interview, say, a particular, when you might want to sort of draw on something a particular respondent said, and rather than to give the full detailed response, you can give you can intimate the key point and then say see appendix, and for the full response. But yeah, or you can even put in the brackets, you know, appendix C or D or whatever you've called it, and that's helpful too. So having some elements of the interview in the context of your discussion, but also referring to it in the appendices helps to show that, you know, there's more for the reader to explore, but there's a little nugget in the context of your discussion that you want to focus on to help with the analysis. And it may only be a partial glimpse, which is why having the appendices and the full transcript gives the full account, right?
All right.
It sounds very exciting though. You're sort of almost coming to the end though. So it's...
Yes, I know, but it's like I still have things to do, definitely.
The finer details are sometimes more exhausting because you just need to make sure you cross-reference and you cross-check. But yeah, I think just have faith and hang in there, because you've done immense amount of work so far and you've done really, really well. So don't forget to go back to the research question. So we want to have the coherence of what you're doing all the way through, because when you're going through your analysis, this is something that I would just reiterate, is that going back to the research question means that it makes more meaningful what you're trying to engage with in the study of the responses that you've received and you've got, and you're sort of relating it back to the real kernel of what you were, you know, doing when you set off to start this project. I'm going to let Saskia in now. Mm-hmm. Is that helpful? Was there any other question that you had, Monika?
Oh yes, I just wondered, because basically, so you know how I sent the some bits and pieces of the work on the 2nd of April?
Yes.
I kind of like didn't get any feedback, or I don't get it on my email.
Is it in your email?
I know it wasn't perfect and there was so much things to do, and I just thought perhaps it was, I don't know, not sufficient enough to give a feedback on it or something like that.
I really thought I fed back all the pieces that you sent me. Let me go through my email. Okay, apologies if you haven't heard from me. That's not what I was thinking. Okay, so I'll go through my emails and see what you've sent me. 2nd of April. Okay.
I think so. It was 2nd or the 3rd of April, the deadline for the 2nd chapter, which we meant to send.
The 2nd chapter, and that was in an email. It wasn't on Moodle, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I will look for that, and if I can't find it, I'll email you and ask you to send it again.
Okay, all right.
All right. So I apologize. I'll check and see what's happened. Now, you can come back again if you want for a final chat. Oh, I see it's up until 3 p.m. I didn't realize that. Okay. So if anything else comes to mind, or if you want to come and chat with others, then come back and see us. I'm hoping that Fabiha and Kamaldeep will join me at the allotted times that I had. So if you want to come back at 3, then by all means.
All right. Thank you very much for your help today.
You're very welcome. Okay, thank you. You too. And I'll put up this, I'll share the link to a YouTube where you can see your segment. And I think what I'm going to have to do is allow the recording to roll. So you may even see the others as well. All right.
Sure.
Okay. Well, take care, Monika. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
All right. Look after yourself. Bye-bye. I'll be in touch.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, Ezra. Hello.
You say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, sweet. You've grown.
Hello. Say hi. You can do hi.
Hi.
He prefers bye-bye.
Aw.
How are you doing?
Oh, okay, yes, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Just plummeting through now, aren't we? It's the last few weeks.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're standing up tall, aren't you, Mummy? Yeah, you're doing a good job. Oh, yeah.
Do clap, clap.
Hello.
Simone, how you do clap, clap? Oh, are we gone shy? Have we gone a bit shy? Clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap. Let's go clap, clap.
Peekaboo.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Clap,
The
clap,
weird
clap, clap.
woman with her head sticking out the water. What's she doing there?
You do clap, clap. Oh,
Oh.
raspberries instead.
Oh. Yes, get those lips warmed up, right? For making all the noise. Hey. Hey, Ezra. What have I got? I haven't got that much that's very stimulating. Not very noisy things anyway. Oh. You looking very engaged, Ezra. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, you're a cheerful chappy. Yes. It's been a long time. Yeah, I missed you.
He's growing so much. It's just
Oh, yeah, he clearly is. He crawling around yet?
no crawling yet, but bum shuffling.
Oh,
It's just an I can't even explain how he does it, but one minute he's somewhere and the next minute I'm like, how did you do that? There's some sort of weird frog jump.
Oh, wow.
I think it'll be soon.
Yes.
It'll be soon.
Yeah, no doubt you'll be keeping Mum on her toes, chasing up after you. Yeah.
When he starts walking, definitely.
I think
He
so.
has so much energy for not being able to, like he's so mobile for not being mobile, if that makes sense.
Yes, he's a very active baby. Yeah. Aren't you, Ezra? Lots of fun, lots to explore. And then it's a virtual tickle.
To tickle. A virtual tickle.
Well, we try. What can we do? Oh, are you counting?
You're counting on your fingers.
1,
Oh, a hi.
2.
You do hi with your hands.
Oh,
Hi.
what's that?
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Yes. Hi. That's right. Do you remember me? Sort of. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just be polite.
Yes.
And then blow a raspberry for fun.
What's all this?
Oh,
What's all this?
hey.
Like FaceTime.
Yes.
It's just like FaceTime.
Hey. That's right.
Yeah.
This must have been a real time of things for you with baby and everything. How
Yeah.
are you finding it?
Yeah, not too. Oh, sorry, I've just got
I'm recording, by the way, so we've got Ezra on record as well, if that's all right. Are you okay with that?
Sorry, a call came through and it cut it out.
No problem. Are you okay for me to record?
Yeah.
Okay.
No
I was thinking actually, because Ezra's there too. You might not want it recorded. Oh, yes.
Is it
So,
okay?
are there questions that you had for me, or that you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I think I've written them down on the document that where is it? So obviously in the methodology I just wrote that I couldn't obtain, because basically what happened was I managed to get hold of the third participant and all of that, and that was all okay, and I sent the form going ahead, but they didn't have anything other than an iPad and weren't able to sign, and they were like, oh, can we just do it without having, and I was like, no, you have to have the informed consent as well as the oral consent. So she couldn't produce a signature digitally, and wasn't able to print, and etc. So there was just
so you have 2 interviews, right?
I have 2 interviews, and
I think that you go with the 2 interviews, of course, and then include in your methodology, you know, how challenges presented themselves and meant that you were you had to rely on the 2 accounts.
Yeah, I've said that, and I've also explained that the third participant, because it was supposed to be a Frobel school that does forest school, I've kind of said in there that there may be some vital links that I could have made with that are maybe missing, and had circumstances been different, that would have been included. Is that okay?
That's okay. And I think what you want to do is, so what I can see you're doing is drawing on the strengths of the potential that you could have had with the further respondent. At the same time, I think it's worth noting that obviously you can go back to it once you've covered the discussions of your 2 respondents that you have got the data for. And you can also intimate in the methodology section, go back to that and say how the findings from the 2 respondents also will help to to inform possible future work, should that ever happen. So I think that way you can kind of see it as an ongoing thing that has a potential there.
There is a potential to support that further, but it's just that so you can't touch that, okay?
Did he mute you? Oh.
Did you do it? Right, keep your hands
waving at each other, that's all.
Hey. Did you do it with 2 hands? He wants 1 hand. He likes to do it with 2 hands, don't you? Bye bye. Bye bye. That exciting? Is that exciting? Yeah, do you want your pine cone? Mum got your pine cone.
Oh, look.
Over here.
Ezra, have you got your play area?
Yeah,
how lovely.
Ezra's area. But he's got lots of toys to play with, but this is his favourite thing to do. Pull up the mats.
That looks like fun.
His favourite thing, he just likes to eat those. You just like to eat those. Yeah. So that keeps him entertained most out of everything. Funnily enough. Did you want to show off that? It's one of your favourite tricks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's important, because in that way it shows that you've made efforts, that you've been ethically aware, and that also you're keeping it in mind for potential possible future work that could be happening, and I don't see why that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was obviously disappointed that it wasn't.
It happens though in research. Yeah, it does happen. Even at MA level, I had a student at MA level who was looking to get interviews, and she, like you, found that there was a disappointment, but actually that worked in her favor because she included it into the whole process, and that's something that this allows for,
Yeah. So I did just mention that because it's a forest school in a Frobel school, there would have perhaps been potential links that were vital that were missing to the research. But on the whole, I sort of concluded that it doesn't matter what we've got.
Yeah.
It actually proved to be challenging in terms of technology because it was quite easy actually, and in fact it probably worked out easier than having to go and do it in person because we were just able to do it via Zoom.
No, that's good, and also the fact that you've got material now that helps to respond to your research question.
Yeah, and there's nothing that's I feel that's lacking in terms of I wasn't everything I've got everything I need to.
Okay, brilliant.
So I feel that it's lacking. It's just I feel like there may be some.
Yeah. And what I will say is that some of the things that I've said to Monica may also apply to you. So as I've been recording this session, I'm going to record and upload it as a YouTube link, and then I'll share it with you and the others. So something of our conversation may be very helpful for Monica as well, for example, even though your topics are not related in the same way, but the structure of your dissertation and the discussion of that might be helpful.
Yeah, and then and the other thing that I was just really concerned about was that because I've kind of structured it like an analytic commentary where as if I take the interviews as if they're observations, and I'm starting with the observation and what happened in the interview, what I've uncovered, and then using that I kind of analyze and make points that either fill knowledge or
have you recorded this in some kind of a have you mapped this in some way?
No, it just it kind of just happened like so in the because I kind of was going to structure it like data collection and then the discussion.
Right.
But what I was confused about was, do you put in the data collection everything that you found but with no analysis and just this is what happened in the interview, etc., like a kind of overview of what was collected, and then in the discussion do I then say, from referring back to the data collection, this part contributed to this and this? Do you know what I mean? Yes.
No, I think what we want to do is at some point in your methodology and leading into your findings, refer to the questions and how it relates to, discuss the design of the questions and how it relates to the research question. And when I was mentioning about themes, that's teasing out the elements from your research in the literature and your review of the literature that have helped the design of the questions. So when you come to discuss your findings and looking at the patterns, you kind of led into that by saying the design of my questions were informed by my review of the literature, where I found these are the elements that were important, whether there's reference to the metaphor of the garden of Froebel, because that's part of your research topic, and the questions about the sort of elements of the, whether it's to what extent is it teacher-led or adult-led or student,
I've kind of in theme sections where I've gone title, emotional competence, and then the research uncovered this and this, and then child-led or adult-led is another title, and then
okay, and that's really helpful. And is that in your findings section?
In the discussion, because I'm kind of what I'm doing is I'm saying that this is what the participants revealed about how it contributes to emotional competency. So basically, I kind of paired that the whole of the interviews, both of them, like between them, both of them, the majority of the biggest theme was emotional competence, competencies, and that being supported through Forest School. And then I've kind of linked that's exactly what was found in the research prior to what I did.
Okay, so it kind of reaffirms what you found in the literature. What I would perhaps think about, from what you're telling me, one way would be to sort of give the kind of, first of all, you include the transcripts of the interviews in your appendices, right? And you include the questions that you pose to them, your outline of the interview questions in your appendices, so that when you are discussing each of the respondents, you can refer to the appendices.
Yes, yeah. So
Right.
I kind of quoted.
Okay, brilliant.
I quotes and sort of said, this is what the research shows.
Okay, that's really helpful, because what I was going to say is, if you've done that, that's great. And then in your discussion of the findings are really the patterns that emerge. Some people use tables and graphs to help. What you could do is say, you know, give an overview of participant A, participant B, or respondent A, respondent B, and then focus in on, pardon?
Could I then, so you said do separately, this is in the data findings, this is what I found from...
Generally what participant A seemed to focus on, or the responses that they gave, and then participant B or respondent B, how they responded and what you found. And then you can say what emerged from the two, what both felt very strongly was this, and then some of the elements that they raised individually were this and that, right? So that when it comes into your discussion, you can then use that as you seem to have done, is exploring it in further depth and making your analysis of, you know, these two respondents particularly gave emphasis to emotional competencies, and this corresponds with the literature. What does this tell us further? How does this relate back to my research question?
I've done that in the discussion, but I've just not put anything in the data findings. So I've gone straight on to analysing it and just kind of going, this is what I found from A, this is what I found from B, this is what they say about this, and then I've done a couple of points individually, this is what they've said. But what I haven't done is done the beginning bit, basically, where
so it sounds to me like you kind of merged the two in a way.
Yeah, because they kind of crossed over, so not really. It's just that from what I inferred from what they said, I've kind of created my own synthesis between the two.
Okay, I would just say you can make explicit in your, if you want to sort of put a finding section, that these two respondents had many things that they seemed to express that overlapped and they shared as concerns or priorities, and this is how each of the respondents sort of presented themselves.
Yeah.
And then you can go into your discussion. So I think you can just make explicit the patterns that you identify, and then you could conclude that section that actually from your respondents, what you found that there was more in common that they agreed upon, which kind of helped to reinforce what the literature suggests. And then in your analysis, what you can do is explore more about your ideas and those things that you've discussed in more detail of how it relates to the literature and the research question. You are very entertaining, Ezra. Yeah, you're very charming.
Careful when you go.
Good boy.
Be careful. Yeah, because you're gonna run. Yeah, and I get a bit of party now. Yeah. You'll get.
Is that helpful, Saskia?
Yeah, it is helpful. Yeah, I think I was just concerned that it wouldn't be obvious that I'm analysing it. I guess I'm just gone straight into the analysis without kind of doing an overview of the findings.
Yeah. No, I think what you could do in the findings is say, you know, give a general introduction to how the respondents seem to.
Yeah. So yes,
look at the questions and respond without using the same word twice, but respond to the questions.
I know this. I'm worried that I'll say it twice if I go into the data collection and say I've collected this, and then underneath I go, I collected these again.
Well, no, I think your findings would just say these are the responses from A and responses from B seem to show generally this sort of picture.
Okay.
I mean, it could be that you can give a general statement about how each of them found the questions, and then particularly which questions emerged as to be of interest from each one. And then at the end of that section say, you know, what are the common areas that you found that
help to
highlight important findings that would help discussion of areas from the, you know, I mean, if you want to use the wording for the sections to help you in terms of shaping what you're saying, and giving structure and signposting, then that's fine. Because essentially what you want to just do is make something explicit about what's distinctive with regards to each of the respondents, but then also what you want to hone in on and focus on, because that's what's interesting for you to help with responding to your question.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't want you to lose sight of that, because that will give, the aim is to have more coherence into seeing, you know, why it is that you want to focus on particular parts of the responses that they've given as opposed to other areas.
Yeah, because I am choosing basically what parts of the interviews that, you know.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea, because they're going to give you the nuggets, you know, the little golden nuggets.
Yeah.
You're going to say, this ties in very well with Froebel's notion. This ties in very well with, you know, how there's some complementary ways of looking at Froebel and forest schooling.
Yeah, look.
Ezra, where are you? Oh, peekaboo. Yeah, I'll give you a virtual hug. Oh, is that a hug? Is that a hug?
Yeah.
So yeah, is that good?
Yeah, that's clearer. So I just I think that was the main thing that I was getting a bit confused about, because at the moment it's just I've got data collection as I used a bit of Saldana 2016 about how patterns are created and similarities identified, and I've basically just said that once the interviews were conducted and etc., I categorized them and did this is what I kind of did, and related that to Saldana.
That's good. So what you're actually doing is the categories give you clusters, right? Give you and you are actually creating themes.
Yeah.
From what you found, right? So you can actually put that into your findings. Is Mummy tasty?
Yeah. Nose is the best.
Are you teething? But so if you
little.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you are clustering themes, you're actually, that's your findings.
Data collection findings. Okay, so I'm clustering themes. Okay.
So you're grouping together these themes that are emerging from your conversation.
So I found
those are your findings, right? And that's how you've categorized it to help you, to give you an overview, but B also to sort of
link it with Froebel basically,
and sort of say, actually this is the most relevant part, you know, respondent A, which helps to make more of my claim that I think my arguments are trying to sort of, and it's by way of trying to see what is it from your findings that can help support your arguments, your position, because that's after all what's beneath the question that you're asking.
Yeah.
Right? Because your research question is actually presupposing that there is an idea here that you want to put forward. And your data that you're looking at is going to help you to see what is it from what I've gathered that can help support and reinforce what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. That now that we've said that, I kind of know where I'm going. I'm going to say that it allowed me to create these themes and categorize the data to be in order to make the links that were needed. To
absolutely.
Questions.
So you can put that in your findings, and then in your discussion, right? Make more of what those categories have helped you to take away from that, and link to what it is from the literature that you want to put to, you know, synthesize, and then make the, you know, your argument stronger as to what the position is that you think your research question is really helping you to ask, and get the responses to answer that question.
Yes.
And that's a very nice way of sort of coming round and keeping the thread going.
Definitely. Okay.
That sounds very promising.
That does, and I'm definitely more confident now about that, and I think that I can get on with things now, can't I? Mummy needs to do writing. Yeah, at the moment it's just a lot of writing and a lot of.
It's coming together.
It's coming together, but it's just a lot of unstructured writing, and I want to say this, I want to say this, I want to say this, but where do I put it in?
Yes.
And I need to kind of shift things around and do all of that. But because I did all of the coding beforehand, that obviously helped. But it also made things a bit messier because I've just got highlighted, and I want to talk about every aspect, but I think I need to do pick something.
Well, if there's a way that you can kind of represent that coding and the way that you've arranged those clusters, if there's a way that you could represent that to help you, then that would be really great.
Yeah. Careful when you eat that, sweetheart.
My goodness, that's all going in. Wow.
Careful. Come on. Let me see. You've got to be careful because that will hurt you if you do it too hard.
Don't get too excited while it's in your mouth. If it's rattling around, then you pop it in your mouth and then whoo.
He was doing the sweeping earlier.
Oh, that's right. Train them while they're young.
He loves the sweeping.
Oh, how wonderful. It's interesting, isn't it? Domestic chores are fun when you're little.
Yeah. And then
it's when you grow up, they just lose their fun factor.
If only we all were in the mind of little ones then and toddlers.
Yeah.
Good, wouldn't it? You could do, or we'll just have them do it all for us.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Let's work on that kind of partnership. That sounds good to me. Was there anything else you wanted to ask me? I would try and see if there's a way you can represent those patterns and the way that you've coded.
Yeah, I think I can do that in the data collection /
Absolutely.
I can because bring that all together and then kind of structure's not the right word, but preempt what I'm going to talk about in the discussion.
Well, it gives you more of a kind of a signifier or a reference point. So that in your discussions,
looking at emotional competencies, looking at child-led learning, but the participants highlighted.
Even if it's in a table, right? And you can put that table in your appendix, and you can put it in your data findings. Say, I coded and clustered them. Oops, Daisy.
What happened?
Did you just knock yourself out momentarily? Don't want to do that. Oh, Ezra.
Hey, we're fine.
What you up to, mischief? Hello.
Mummy did say that would happen, didn't she? So to be careful.
That's a good thing about when you're little, you can forget. Have a little wobble and then just forget about it. Yeah.
For a big cuddle. And an eat.
Yes. Oh no. Caress mummy. Yes. And then have a little taste. Yeah.
So funny. You've always done that one, haven't you? Yeah. About clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap, clap. Yeah. Clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap.
Oh. Well, look, if there are any subsequent things that come to mind, you can drop the line. But I've got 3 p.m. as a sort of come back together if you've got any further questions.
Okay, so I'll go away and have a little think.
Have a little think, and if you want to come back at 3 o'clock, I'll be here. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Ezra, you gonna say bye-bye?
Bye-bye, Ezra. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see you. See you soon. Bye.
You wave. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. He's going to eat his hand. Bye-bye. And say bye-bye. You going to do bye-bye? You do bye-bye. Ezra, do bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye. 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 I'm not going to perform.